They ignored the fact that you got chartered flights because of this girl. They ignored the fact that ratings were going through the roof because of this girl.
The drama surrounding Caitlin Clark didn't begin with a buzzer beater or a viral highlight. It began with a question, or rather, with the sudden end of one. A reporter, attempting to revisit an old soundbite from Angel Reese, never finished his sentence. Reese didn't need to hear it. With just 2 words, "Next question," she dismissed the premise, the spotlight, the entire conversation. And yet that unfinished question echoed louder than any answer. It symbolized the unspoken tension, the friction, the resentment, the reckoning now boiling at the heart of the WNBA. Because Caitlin Clark, for better or worse, has become the epicenter of the most significant shift in women's basketball history. She came in not with a whisper, but with a bang. Record-breaking viewership, sold-out arenas, endorsement deals, and the kind of hype rarely seen outside of March Madness or NBA Finals. It wasn't just that she was good. It wasn't even that she was better. It was that she made people care. Millions who had never watched a WNBA game were now tuning in, traveling, spending, and talking.
Indiana Fever announced that star Caitlin Clark will be out at least 2 weeks with a left quad strain.
And for the first time in decades, the league had what it had always dreamed of: tension. But instead of rallying around the moment, many within the league recoiled. They didn't welcome the Caitlin Clark effect. They treated it like a virus. Her fans were mocked, her impact was questioned, and her spotlight was seen as a threat, not a victory. Some tried to minimize her presence, others tried to explain it away. A few tried to outright reject it. And to anyone watching from the outside, the response was bewildering. The WNBA, a league desperate for cultural relevance, finally got a generational star. And then they hesitated. There were voices that spoke reason, who understood that Clark was an opportunity, not a competition. But those were drowned out by the ones clinging to the old paradigm. In their view, the rise of Caitlin Clark wasn't the ascent of a hero, it was the funeral of a shared dream. Because deep down, this wasn't just about basketball. It was about legacy, status, identity. And above all, it was about who got to be the face of the league. Clark shattered records and defied expectations long before she ever stepped onto a WNBA court. She carried Iowa to back-to-back national title games, obliterated the NCAA scoring record, and made logo threes look like warm-ups. When the Indiana Fever made her the #1 pick in the draft, there was no suspense. It was a coronation. The press, the cameras, the sponsors, all lined up like she was already a household name. And in truth, she was. But her arrival triggered something more than excitement. It cracked open a cultural divide. The WNBA had seen elite talent before. A'ja Wilson, Breanna Stewart, Diana Taurasi, all champions, all icons. But none had generated this level of buzz. And for many, that sting ran deeper than a stat sheet. First came denial. The league's old guard, players, media, even executives tried to temper the moment. They pushed back, suggested the hype was premature, maybe even undeserved. They told themselves and others that she hadn't earned it yet, that college and pro were 2 different beasts, that she'd be humbled soon enough. But when Clark's debut pulled in over 2 million viewers, the most watched WNBA game in over 20 years, denial began to collapse under the weight of reality. Next came anger. Clark quickly became the target of on-court physicality that felt less like competition and more like sanctioned punishment. Hard screens, cheap hits, uncalled fouls. It was as if the league, or at least parts of it, had decided that if the media wouldn't challenge her, the players would. Night after night, Clark was hit, bruised, and battered. But she never complained. She got stronger. She adjusted. And after the Olympic break, she returned like a woman possessed, breaking records, leading her team, and silencing every critic who'd written her off as just another flash in the pan. But with dominance came bargaining. That's when the narratives began to shift. Not to praise Clark, at least not directly, but to redefine the terms of her success. Some critics questioned the media for focusing so heavily on her. Others implied racial bias, that her fans weren't real fans, that her stardom was more about optics than talent. The narrative wasn't subtle. If you liked Caitlin Clark, maybe you were part of the problem. But the numbers didn't lie. She led the league in assists as a rookie. Her games consistently delivered record-shattering viewership. Her presence sold out venues that had been half empty for years. And the backlash, wrapped in coded language and bad faith critiques, started to sound less like accountability and more like bitterness. Still, if they couldn't ignore her and couldn't stop her, maybe they could isolate her. But that strategy failed too. One by one, veterans began signing with the Indiana Fever. Not because they had to, but because they wanted to. These weren't washed-up role players. These were champions, legends, athletes with options. And they were coming to play with Caitlin. Not for a paycheck, for a chance to be part of something bigger. And the floodgates opened. Games were moved from practice courts to NBA arenas. Ticket prices soared. Preseason matchups turned into spectacles. One exhibition game, with no playoff stakes and no regular season. Consequences, sold out a 15,000-seat arena and generated an estimated $9.75 million in ticket sales for preseason. That doesn't happen because of hype. That happens because of impact, because of gravity. The broadcast schedule followed suit. Of Indiana's 44 regular season games, 41 were nationally televised. That's not coverage. That's saturation. Networks were betting everything on Caitlin Clark, and why wouldn't they? The evidence was everywhere. The Caitlin Clark effect wasn't a theory anymore. It was a measurable, monetizable phenomenon. And yet, it wasn't until one moment, a single shot, that everything finally, irrevocably changed. Caitlin Clark returned home to Iowa in a preseason exhibition against Brazil. More than 1.3 million people tuned in. The crowd was deafening, the arena packed, the energy palpable. And with the eyes of the sports world on her, Caitlin stepped into the very spot where she had once broken the NCAA scoring record and drained a three from well beyond the logo. It was poetic, cinematic, almost too perfect. She knew what the moment meant. She always does. And when the buzzer sounded, the Brazilian national team didn't just shake her hand. They surrounded her like fans, selfies, hugs, pure admiration. In that moment, Caitlin Clark wasn't just a star. She was a symbol, a generational icon, a once-in-a-lifetime athlete changing everything on her terms. That moment outdrew NBA preseason games, outdrew MLB spring training, outdrew WNBA finals. It shattered the illusion that this was about anyone else. The media noticed, the players noticed. Even the skeptics began to soften, their tones shifting from cynicism to cautious respect. Not all, but enough. Enough to change the narrative. Now the praise is louder, the support more visible. Former critics lining up to credit her leadership, her intelligence, her grit. Not because they were wrong before, though many were, but because they realize now the direction history is moving. The WNBA isn't just embracing Caitlin Clark, it's riding her momentum, and Caitlin, she's not slowing down. While others coasted through the offseason, she was on the road. From NFL owner meetings to the Masters, then back in the gym by 8 a.m. the next day. The word for that isn't fame. It's obsession. It's discipline. It's greatness. Kobe-level greatness. Mamba mentality in real time. She's bigger, sharper, faster. The body's caught up to the moment. The mind was always ahead of it. And now, the game, the entire league, is starting to revolve around her. Whether the old guard likes it or not, some will still cling to resentment. Others will embrace the change, but no one can deny what's coming. The Caitlin Clark effect has entered its next phase. And this time, it's not just shifting the conversation, it's rewriting the game. If you're still watching, I want to hear from you. Do you think Caitlin Clark is the face of the WNBA now, or is the media narrative moving too fast? How should the league balance her spotlight with its veteran stars? Drop your take in the comments. And if you want more deep dives like this one, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. There's a lot more coming.